You know what's interesting, Monty? That is the strangest plaque any coach has ever won in the history of the league. So congratulations for Coach of the Bubble, Monty. But Joy brought up, we were talking about this during the break, is that because there's no home court advantage, what became very apparent in the bubble, and I saw it yesterday with Houston, effort is winning these games. You convinced your young Phoenix team. You guys played hard every moment. And in this bubble, you don't get the home court call. You don't get the home court juice from the fans. You're not tired from flying. I just thought the teams that played with effort, Portland's doing this. You convinced the young team of Phoenix to play hard for every minute of every game. Did you figure it out before we did that effort was going to be the deciding factor in this bubble?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. We have a bit of a blueprint for how we want to play. Our guys bought in from day one in Flagstaff at our first training camp on the high level of intensity that we had to play with to be successful. And one of our coaches, Darko Rajkovic, he was watching the games overseas, and he made a remark to the staff that the teams that were in shape and playing with a high level of force and intensity from the start were having the most success. Yeah. And that fit with our DNA. And so we just, we didn't fall into it. It's just how we have to play. And we have talented guys for sure, but they're young. And then we had, phenomenal play from Devin and leadership from Ricky, and a number of our guys stepped up and grew on the fly. So that's the only way we can play. That's the only way I want to play. I don't think you should be rewarded for playing hard. I think that should be a given. And it's not something I take for granted. We just have a team that competes every time we touch the floor.
It's interesting. You faced the Lakers and Portland this year. I was saying Damian Lillard is almost scarier when he trails. Because then there's no, then the coaches are like, Dame, we need you. Come say, it's almost like Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. Trailing, he's scarier than leading. Because when he's leading, Andy Reid may tell him, just run the ball, run the clock out. When he's trailing, Mahomes is going to throw it 12 straight times. You have faced Portland. You have faced the Lakers. Is there a way to defend Dame? Is there a secret sauce or anything with Portland defending them?
Well, we haven't figured it out. Damian is a guy that from the first time I met him at the Chicago pre-draft camp, you just kind of knew he was different. And we had him in a room doing the draft process, and all of the people in the room were asking about his family, hobbies and all that stuff. And as a coach, I wasn't really worried about that. And so I jammed him up with a time, score, situation question. And I hit him with about 4 or 5 different scenarios in one play. And he looked me in the eyes right after he processed the question. And he said, "Coach, I don't know." And I thought that was profound. He didn't try to fool me. He didn't try to come up with something that would sound like he knew what he was talking about. He had enough security and confidence in his own ability to say he didn't know. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't know what he's going to be. Nobody knew back then, but I thought it said a lot about the confidence that he had in his ability and he had in himself. And we're seeing it now.
Lakers, meanwhile, they're very big. I thought Dwight Howard made a couple of key plays last night. JaVale McGee's always been athletic. Anthony Davis is a handful. I do think over the course of this series, I think the Lakers' size probably ends up winning this series. It's a real handful. When you face the Lakers, how did you work around, if you could, how did you work around their just size?
We had to zone a bit to hide some of the matchups or what we would call mismatches. And so we zoned and tried to get them late into the clock, and we would switch and live with a contested shot, hopefully a non-paint 2. But the guy that will probably help them when he gets back is Rondo. because he sets the deck for everybody. He's an organizer, and he's one of those guys that you don't value him until he's not out there on the floor. And when I was watching the game last night, it just seemed like they were missing his ability to organize the floor and get guys in their spots. But they're certainly a big team, a deep team. They missed a ton of shots last night, and that's always the equalizer, especially in the playoffs, where plays aren't necessarily going to get you over the top. It's going to be concepts and environments, talent, and decisions. And last night, Portland made shots. And when I saw CJ come out in the third quarter, he was really aggressive.
Yep.
And when he played like that in the third, I thought LA could be in trouble if he saw a couple of his shots go down, and he did. And it helped those guys win the game.
Monty Williams' first year in Phoenix. He was a U.S. national team assistant coach under Mike Krzyzewski in Rio de Janeiro. Suns 8-0 in the bubble. He won the bubble coach. So you were in Philadelphia last year. I know, it's so funny. You were in Philly last year with Embiid and Simmons, and it's interesting about this sport. You can have two great players. They don't always play together well. I always thought it was a credit to KD and Steph that you had these two great players, and they just fit. They just fit. Chris Paul and Harden,
right.
It didn't fit as well, and that's okay. That there's nothing wrong with that. That's the, when you're with. I mean, here's my thing about Embiid and Simmons. I always had this theory that if any relationship, if you're in therapy after 8 years, maybe it's just too darn hard. Like stuff shouldn't be that hard. And I watch Embiid and Simmons, and I'm a cynic on this, Monty. I'm like, God, it can't be this hard. Is it possible that Embiid and Simmons are both great? But it's never going to quite click.
Well, I had the fortune of coaching those two guys. And the thing that, I don't want to make declarations about this year's team. I can only speak to my experience with those two guys. The thing that really helped those two was J.J. Redick, because J.J. had the ability to space the floor, which helped both of those guys. And when Ben would go into his DHO, his guy would tend to back off of him into the paint. And that was an easy shot for JJ because there was no help after the dribble handoff. And so JJ was a great compliment to those two guys. That's no disrespect to Jay Rich or Tobias or any of those guys that are playing with Philly now. But I know that JJ created a lot of opportunities for that team. And it's hard when you're playing in a city like Philadelphia and everything you do is criticized
right.
Every hour. Those guys are competitive, high-level talents, and they're young. Ben is a guy that I spent a ton of time with, and he's right there. I think when he starts to take those shots in the game and make them like he does in his warm-ups and his workouts, you're probably going to see a top 5 player in the league.
Yeah. But
the jury's out on that team, but their upside is tremendous.
It's the bubble was really great. I mean, I've been watching the NBA, been a fan forever. I think the aesthetic is amazing. I don't think I've ever been more into these games. There's no home court. Intensity is like college. I love the young players in this league right now. It's just amazing to me. Kids are coming in the league and they're better earlier. When was the first time, Devin Booker is going to be your guy now for years. When was the first time you looked at Devin Booker? Because Kentucky puts a lot of dudes in the NBA. A lot of miss,
sure.
A lot of okay, and then Devin comes in and you're like, pow. When was the first time you saw him? And did you think Devin Booker would be this, which is, the young Harden, like literally a guy that could score 50 and you wouldn't be surprised?
I think for me, it was my time with USA Basketball. And the senior team would play against the select team. And I think it was his first time in that environment. And after every scrimmage and every practice, we go into our meetings and start talking about players on our team. And we talk about the scrimmage and was there somebody from that select team that we could bring up? And almost every day, Devin's name came up. He had a confidence about him, and he wanted everybody to know that he belonged.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to be with him every day indirectly, and he reminded me so much of Brandon Roy, who I coached.
Oh, God, I love Brandon Roy.
Yeah, he and Book have so many similarities, not many weaknesses in their game at all. Great footwork. good hands, and they're fundamentally more sound than people give them credit. But the difference between Devin and Brandon and other players is their confidence. Devin feels like he's the best player on the floor every time we play.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see what he's doing now back then, but that was the first encounter that I had with him, and you could see that he was different from the other young players on the select team.
Everybody I know in the league loves you. Monty Williams, how are your kids during COVID? Your kids doing okay? How are you doing?
My kids are great, man. I just graduated. I didn't. Thank God I didn't have to do anything, but she just graduated from Wheaton College, and I have 2 in college, and my boys are here at the house and in my pocket, and they're all doing well. They're just they're the inspiration for me, and I'm so thankful that God gave me these kids. And my new wife, Lisa, has her hands full trying to take care of me and all of my children. So thank you so much for asking, man. I really appreciate that.
Huge fans. You're just a credit to the sport, man. You're one of the good guys. Appreciate you stopping by. I'd love to have you on again.
Thank you so much. I thank you for allowing me to promote our program, and love you guys on your show.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.